but 2 of those 6 Oscars went to a duo of young men. Their names were Richard M. and Robert B. Sherman. They had first come to the Disney studio as kind of freelancers, writing pop recordings for Annette Funicello. Tall Paul, you all remember that. Pineapple Princess, those were from them. And when it came time to write a little ditty for Annette to sing in a television show, they first met Walt Disney, and they were of course very nervous, but he loved the way that they thought. He loved the way the Shermans put story at the heart of everything. And by the time Mary Poppins went before the lens, they had already been signed on as Walt Disney's personal staff songwriters, a very singular honor, and we'll get to that in just a little bit there. But the Shermans come by it naturally. Their father was a songwriter too, the great Al Sherman, who wrote songs like You Gotta Be a Football Hero and Potatoes Are Cheaper. But Walt knew the Sherman brothers thought the same way he did when they had a meeting about this new thing he was entertaining called Mary Poppins. And this is well before Mrs. Travers had agreed to allow the film to be made. Walt was going to start production early and hope for the best. But he gave the book to the Shermans and said, please go home and read this and tell me what you think. They came back with 6 chapters from the original book circled, and Walt, with a grin, went to his bookcase and got that copy that has that page there on the left that you see, and he had underlined the same 6 chapters as being where he felt the most magic lay and where he thought that motion pictures really could be drawn from. So that was the point at which Walt put the Shermans under contract, because he knew they thought the same way. And immediately the Shermans set to work and wrote all kinds of songs, some of which have never been heard, because as the story developed, characters came, characters went, they had to change. But there was a basic theme to their whole look at Mary Poppins, and that was English music hall and the world of 1910 Edwardian England, which was a lot more fun than the world of the 1930s when the books had actually taken place. So now we get to the title of our show. I don't know if any of you know the expression, the songwriter's trunk. It's not maybe really a steamer trunk, but it's where songwriters throw all their old music, songs that made it, songs that didn't make it, and maybe they can take them out again and use them in a different way later. Well, the Sherman brothers did indeed have a trunk, only in this case, really, it was a carpet bag. So we're going to open the Sherman Brothers Magic Songwriters Carpet Bag tonight and take a look at some of the music that they wrote for Mary Poppins, which actually did not end up in a traditional form in the motion picture, and see what happened to it in later life. Now, of course, I would be remiss if I didn't mention how very successful the score to Mary Poppins was. You'll notice there's P.L. Travers with her preview copy. People had to sign a security agreement to get that blue record at the bottom there prior to the opening of the film, and they were forbidden from playing it on the radio until after the August 27th premiere day. That's all they had, was radio and television back then. But records and sheet music were also hugely prevalent. Foreign language copies, marching band versions, everybody was playing the wonderful songs of Mary Poppins. But the first way that the songs really are made manifest is something called a lead sheet. They're usually just the melody line, maybe some chords, and that's what the talent, the singers, and the conductors get and look at, and then they look at how they can flesh it out with instrumentation, how it might be performed, how a routine might be worked out from there. Here we see Dick Van Dyke at a recording session at the Disney Studio Orchestra stage, studying a lead sheet with choreographer Mark Breaux. And the man on the left is the conductor of Mary Poppins, Irwin Kostal, who also was the conductor of West Side Story and The Sound of Music. So again, that big, beautiful Broadway sound that makes the score to Mary Poppins so lush. The Shermans composed actually 32 songs for Mary Poppins, but of course, we won't ever hear all of them, and some of them never even made it beyond the initial scribbled sheet music, or never even got put on an acetate demonstration recording. So there is some archaeology to be done there, and perhaps we can do that at a different time. But there is a little history to a few songs that I thought you might find enjoyable. So out of the Songwriter's Carpet Bag comes first a song about Admiral Boom. You all remember Admiral Boom. He's the timekeeper on Cherry Tree Lane, lives next door to the Bankses, and he tells time in a most unique way. Do you remember how? He fires a cannon, just so you know, in case you missed it, what time it is. And originally, the Admiral, whose house really is ship-shape, literally, had two mates on board, Mr. Barnacle and Mr. Binnacle. Well, Mr. Binnacle made it to the film, Mr. Barnacle did not, but believe it or not, even though this song didn't make it into the film, we actually do get to hear the melody. So I'm going to play you a little bit of a recording of both Richard and Robert Sherman singing the unused Admiral Boom song, and then I'll show you a bit from the final Mary Poppins film, and you'll see, oh, I've been listening to it all my life and I didn't even know.
The name for punctuality, you may safely assume, soon. It's known throughout the Admiralty, it's me, Admiral Boom.
Time gun ready.
Ready in charge, sir.
I'll take the report, Mr. Binnacle.
The wind has changed, sir. Seems to be coming in from a new quarter.
So it is.
Sir,
What is it?
bit of something or other taking place off the port bow.
That was Reginald Owen and Don Barclay as Admiral Boom and Mr. Binnacle. So you've been listening to that song all your life and you didn't know it was a song, you just thought it was a spiffy little underscore theme. Well, Katie Nana is about the last character in Mary Poppins that you think of to have a song, don't you think? She's rather sour, but she did have a song for a while. It was called Lead the Righteous Life, and it was kind of a fire and brimstone anthem, and another reason that Jane and Michael weren't too thrilled about her. Well, that song never happened, and so Elsa Lanchester did not get to sing it, even though she did sing. The Sherman Brothers dusted it off later, softened the words a bit, and it was intended to be used as a hymn in the church in Beulah, Maine, attended by Haley Mills and her family in Summer Magic. Lead the Righteous Life actually was published in the Summer Magic songbook, but it was cut from that film as well. Well, a good song never gives up, and finally it found a permanent home with a new set of lyrics that were a little bit more fitness-oriented, and it ended up in 1967 in The Happiest Millionaire, the last live-action film produced personally by Walt Disney. So here's a clip from The Happiest Millionaire, where Lead the Righteous Life finally finds a home as Strengthen the Dwelling with the middle Bible class.
Strengthen the dwelling of the Lord, fashion the framework board by board. Spirit is in which now we stand, building his fortress strong and grand. It is written that the body and mind of mortal man should walk in the spirit of his master.
So you all recognized Fred McMurray as the Happiest Millionaire. That was Tommy Steele as his Irish bewildered butler. Now, Practically Perfect is a song title that some of you may know because George Stiles and Anthony Giroux, who were brought on board to augment the Sherman Brothers score for the Mary Poppins stage show, actually wrote a song called Practically Perfect, which is in that stage presentation. However, it goes back much further than that. Back in the early 60s, the Shermans wrote a song as they were exploring Mary Poppins' personality, and they thought that maybe she would arrive and proclaim herself to be practically perfect. But they didn't really think that that song gelled, and so not even Walt saw that song. They just put it in the trunk and away it went. But what's funny is the song came back with a vengeance actually in Mary Poppins, because even though Julie Andrews had been cast as the nanny, the rest of the cast was very important, and Walt had made a few films in the past with Glynis Johns. She'd starred in Rob Roy, the Highland Rogue, and The Sword and the Rose for him over in Britain, so he had Glynis in for lunch to offer her a role in Mary Poppins. However, Glynis thought she was being offered the role of Mary Poppins, so it was kind of diplomatically difficult to explain to her that, oh, we want you to be in Mary Poppins, Glynis, yes indeed. And so when it came out that she was being eyed for Mrs. Banks, she said, well, I don't know, perhaps if I had a number. And the Sherman Brothers were there, and Walt said, oh, yes, you boys are working on a great song for Mrs. Banks now, aren't you? And the Sherman said, yes, we are. And then they ran upstairs and rummaged around, and just a couple days later came up with a little something that you might know. So I'm going to play you just a little snippet of Practically Perfect. There is no demo for it, but Richard Sherman did perform a little tiny, like a storytelling blurb of it once, which we have captured. So you'll hear Practically Perfect, and then you'll hear where that song ended up.
practically perfect in every way, in everything I do, in everything I say.
Cast off the shackles of yesterday, shoulder to shoulder into the fray. Our daughters' daughters will adore us, and they'll sing in grateful chorus. Well done, sister suffragettes.
And we even have some suffragettes with us tonight, so obviously the anthem worked. So Practically Perfect led to another song, The Right Side. And this refers to the right side of the bed. You've all heard about, oh, he got up on the wrong side of the bed, and so that's why he's in a bad mood. Well, in the story at one point, Michael Banks was going to be a little bit petulant and fractious, and Mary Poppins was going to give him a musical lecture on the right side of the bed attitude. And he thought that, well, you know, okay, maybe I'll do it. And it was a little learning adventure for Michael, but it slowed the story down, so it didn't make it into the film. But this song did indeed go into many homes around the world in the 1980s, sung by a different British-born Disney star. So here is the original demo recording for The Right Side, featuring Richard Sherman, and we'll segue to where that song finally found its home.
Some days the right side is the wrong side. Some days the left side is the wrong side. Those days your face is on the long side all day long. Some days the right side is the right side. Some days the left side is the right side. Those days your face is on the bright side all day long.
The bright side is your friends and things, and songs with happy tunes, and ice cream cones, and jelly beans, and honey cakes and big balloons. So always think about the bright things. You'll find that they are all the right things. You'll be on the right side, never on the wrong. All day long.
How many of you grew up watching Welcome to Boo Corner on the Disney Channel? Do you remember that? Well, the Shermans contributed many original songs and a few trunk songs or carpetbag songs to that show as well. In addition, of course, they wrote these songs for the original Winnie the Pooh featurettes, so they knew their way around a honey tree. Now, a song from the Mary Poppins original score that didn't get put in is something that a lot of people know. In fact, it's being featured in a potentially Broadway-bound stage production right now, so I'll tell you about that in a second. That's called The Land of Sand. And in Mary Poppins, the original book, those chapters that the Shermans had circled and that Walt had underlined, one of them called Bad Tuesday, involved a compass that Mary Poppins had in her carpet bag, and whenever she looked at it and said north or south or east or west, the compass would magically transport them to wherever that happened to be. So the compass sequence was for many, many months the cornerstone of Walt's treatment for Mary Poppins. And there were songs for each of the compass points: the North Pole Polka, South Seas Tiki Town, and a mysterious desert. So The Land of Sand was the mysterious desert song. Let's hear that demo. Think about the compass here, think about the Land of Sand, and then we'll segue to the song that you all know, which is going to be a very big hit yet again very soon.